Hello, hockey humans of the world. How are you? Good to have you here. This is Josh from Tough Call Podcast. I'm doing an impromptu live show. So, what you're about to watch is my 2025 playoff recap. I'll cover all my fines and suspensions throughout the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs up to the final. I decided I'm going to break this into two shows, and I'm just going to do the first three rounds first, and then I'll do the final after the fact in a separate show. Intentional headshots, revenge hits, boardings from behind. Our old favorite, the cross check to the face, was very popular in the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs, and even a little abuse of officials for good measure. Uh, I mean, what would the Stanley Cup playoffs be without stuff like that, really? And actually, getting the answer to that question is what Tough Call is all about. And hopefully, some of you are familiar with my system. If not, hopefully, by the end of the show, you'll have an opportunity to see what I'm all about and what I'm trying to accomplish in the game. Um, Please be active in the chat. Feel free to ask any questions you want. And let's have some fun with this, some fun discussion. So, about for the next 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes, I'll be talking about the first three rounds of the playoffs and whatever you want to bring up in the chat. Sure. Now, obviously, it's been more than a week since my last episode. It's hard to believe that the playoffs started way back on April 19th, is when all this first started. It's crazy long ago. So much has happened since then. But so this episode will be a little different than my usual one. Um, uh, we'll see how it goes. Anyway, we'll go into my first segment: weekly total fines and suspensions. So, throughout the entire 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs, the NHL's actual Department of Player Safety, real world, issued a total of 11 fines and two suspensions through the whole playoffs, including the final, for a total of 13 instances of supplemental discipline. Now, again, I'm going to just do up to the conference finals. So the first three rounds, not including the final. In the first three rounds alone, I would have issued 15 fines. And so I already have more fines alone than what they would have had fines and suspensions. And I would have issued 56 suspensions for a total of 71 instances of supplemental discipline in three rounds of NHL playoff hockey. Now, obviously, I know that's an overwhelming number. It sounds like a lot, but it's important to note that under my system, there'd be a standard already set, and players would know that standard. So they wouldn't be likely to do some of these things. And also, uh, a lot of the players that I would have suspended were players that would have already been on suspension and then did things in the next game where they wouldn't have been able to do that because they wouldn't have been playing in that game. That actually happens quite a bit to me. Usually, good things come in about threes. So, usually, a player will do one thing and I would have fined or suspended them, and the league does nothing. So they do something else a game or two later. And then by the third time they do something, the league usually does act on it. But by then, I would have already set the tone. So for me, there's a lot of repeat instances from repeat offenders. That wouldn't be the case if they were actually under my system because they'd already missed time. So just these are, I know my numbers are overwhelming, but um, just keep that in mind that the whole point of this isn't to just punish players for doing things. It's actually to educate them and teach them what to do appropriately so they don't get themselves into that kind of trouble. I'm going to have some fun with this number, and I'm eventually going to tell you in the next episode who the dirtiest player I thought was of the entire playoffs. So that'll be the next time. By the end of this episode, I will have told you who I think the dirtiest team was in the entire playoffs based on my system. Now, I didn't have a goal in mind. This is just looking at my suspensions and fines and calculating them up and putting them to a team who did what. I didn't know who would do what when I started this at the first round. I just wrote down, this is what I do, this is what I do. And this is just how the maths, and we're going to find out how it works. Sometimes the answers actually surprise me because we assume some teams are dirty, some aren't. Does it always play out that way in the real world? We're going to find out, I guess. I'm going to break this number down into five different ways. So I'll tell you how many incidents I would have given per round. That'll be the first one. How many incidents per suspension category under my system? So my system, for those that don't know, is broken down. I'm just going to check the chat here for a second. There's a few comments here. Hockey is badly watered down now. You know what? That is true. Do I want the NHL to be the KHL? I'm not honestly sure what you mean by that. Like what is the KHL to you? in terms of discipline and things? Do they give a lot of suspensions in the KHL? I don't necessarily follow it that much, or is there just not a lot of hitting, not a lot of fighting? I don't know. Is that what you mean? I'd be curious for you to add to that comment, to be honest, so that we can discuss it more. What I want, what my whole goal is to have more body contact, more big open ice body checks in hockey. And I think the best way to do that for me is to have players be forced to do it the right way so that they don't do stupid things like lift their elbow up and do these chicken wings and flybys. I want them to have to be better positionally, be better skaters, and be more selective on when they hit so that they don't force hits that aren't there. So they let them come organically. Okay, KHL is where excellent players go to avoid contact and violence. So that's kind of where I thought you were going with that. I get it. Look, I get it. If people think I'm trying to ruin hockey, they think that I am one of those people who doesn't like any violence and fighting. And it's not true. I just don't like manufactured violence. The game is already fast enough. A body check can be super hard without having to lunge into it and force contact, force excess force, drive your elbows up, put your hands up. That's not body contact to me. That's not true excellent hockey physicality. That's just garbage. That's bush league stuff. That players should be better than that. They shouldn't have to resort to that if they are truly the top players in the world. They should be able to throw body checks. And the other part of that is it's not that I don't like fighting, it's that I don't like fighting after every little thing. And I know there's not a lot of true fights these days. Like I remember back in the day, of course, we would two people would just there was no defense. They'd stand there and they just fire punches. And it's not who would not get punched, it's who could throw the most punches in 45 seconds. It was awesome. Uh, I will never be able to legislate players using dirty tactics. Players will always try and push the envelope. I agree. Because you win with them now. Of course you do. You win with them now. Uh, the way I see it, the league isn't hard enough on those, which is why players continue to do them. They don't crack down enough on them. So players will do it because that's what it takes to win, and it only wins now because they're not punished for it. If players would be suspended for these things, if players would be constantly penalized for them, then then why would they keep doing it? But because they get rewarded for it, of course they're going to keep doing it. That's the way I look at it. I just think it's that easy. They did a crackdown on cross checking for 2 weeks, and cross checking went away for 2 weeks, and then they stopped. Players are smart. They'll adapt to any standard the league will set for them. They adjusted to no two line pass. They were able to come up with strategy for that. They adjusted to 3-on-3 overtime. They adjusted to hybrid icing. They adjusted to new face-off location. It's not hard. They can adjust. They can adjust the way they play based on new rules. If we put new rules in front of them and present them appropriately and enforce them consistently, that's the key. If they want to have the standard they have now, that's you know, the reason I have a big problem with the standard they have now is because they don't enforce the standard. It's very selective. It changes game to game. It changes period to period. There's no standard. That's the problem. It's too inconsistent. If you want to have where they let the players play, well, that's to me not letting players play. It's letting players stop other players from playing illegally. You're letting players break the rules more than they are should be allowed to. Essentially, there becomes no rules, and then it becomes even more painful. If you're going to decide to put the whistles away, at least do that. Don't call a token hook randomly. Like that's to me consistently. Consistency is the absolute key. Um, so, I mean, I could talk about that forever. That is these are the conversations I love having. Um, a lot of people say, okay, a team of polite. I'm not asking for players to be polite. That's the thing. So, a team of polite players will get massacred by a team of impolite players every time. This is something that I really want to talk about. I love this, and I get your point. I know you don't agree. Like I get it. I understand that, and that's fine. I absolutely 100% accept that there are people who think your way. Actually, a lot of people. I'm kind of in the minority. I get it. But I don't want players to be polite. I look at physicality and toughness, I guess, a little differently. To me, it's not tough to go after someone after the whistle. It's not tough to fly by a goalie and then give them a face wash. Those things aren't tough. It's not tough to wait till the linesmen come in and then reach your stick in and give someone a poke in the groin. That's not tough. Those are greasy tactics that make you dirty and ratty. If you want to be tough dirty, at least be tough about it. To me, a defenseman in the NHL should be able to defend the front of their net without cross-checking in the back of the neck or the head. It shouldn't be accepted that just because people are standing in front of the net, all of a sudden the cross-checking rule goes out the window. You shouldn't get two or three free shots. To me, the rule is the rule. Call the rule. That's how it should be. It's the only way to be consistent. It shouldn't change depending on where it is on the ice. It shouldn't change whether it's the third period or overtime. The rules shouldn't change. The rules are the rules. We're the only league in the world that has a playoff rule book. Everyone else calls the rules by the rules all the time. The Broad Street Bullies definitely won 2 cups doing that. The Panthers just won 2 cups doing that. Tampa Bay did win their cups a little bit doing that. St. Louis and Boston both bullied their way to the finals doing that, and St. Louis got their cup. When the Washington Capitals did it, they bullied their way to the cup. Bullying wins hockey. Bullying absolutely wins hockey right now. You are 100% correct. Bullying wins hockey because you get rewarded for being a bully and they punish the player who tries to stand up for themselves. That's the problem. To me, my system would eliminate that. I am gonna get back into the numbers a little bit, sort of get back on track. But I very much appreciate these messages, these comments, and I love what you're saying. It's absolutely the conversation that I have almost daily with people, and it's not that I don't like I know that many people feel your way and not as many people feel my way, but more and more people are seeing what I'm saying and understanding that what I'm doing won't take away from that physicality. It'll actually be more of it. It'll be more exciting. The good thing about playoffs is I think the announcers were joking in one of the first round matchups was they're saying that we've already seen 40 or 50, literally 40 or 50 checks that would have resulted in a fight in the regular season, but because of the playoffs they don't do that, and to me that's exciting. That's exciting hockey. The first game of the entire playoffs that set the tone, the St. Louis, Washington, Winnipeg, sorry, first game was incredible hockey. It was enormously entertaining hockey, and it's because there was so much body checking, but it was all clean body checking. There wasn't really anything dirty. So the very last second, they had this little bit of a scrum, and to me, it was that was the most boring part of the game. The rest of the game was very, very exciting because of all the body contact, and I'm like, "Why don't people want this all the time?" And you could have it if you force players to stay within the rules more, and we called the rules consistently. And then the most important part to me is once there's a clean check, players should just get up, dust themselves off, and play on. There shouldn't be always a scrum. Slows the game down, makes it boring to me. All these stoppages and scrums and face washes, you don't see that as much in the playoffs. Um, until the series get later. The first 2 or 3 games of a series are usually very, very entertaining. Um, so back to my numbers. Through playoff round, through the first round alone, I'd have issued 4 fines and 29 suspensions. And the other thing is I'm going to break down the type of incidents I would suspend. And I want you to bear with me on that because it's important to me. Um, it looked like in the playoffs that I give more, for instance, 6 to 10 games. I never did explain my story to some of you. I didn't explain my system because I got caught up in the comments, which I love. Keep the comments coming. This is fantastic. Um, so I have obviously my suspension scale goes from fines. You can have fines, 1 to 2 games. That's a category. 3 to 5 games is a category, and 6 to 10 games is a category. Um, I do I do have some 6 to 10 gamers to talk about, and those are rare in the NHL. They're more common under my system, but they're for things that are not have no purpose, no hockey purpose at all. For me, if something has a hockey purpose, that's a smaller spot. If you accidentally clip someone in the chin because you're trying to throw a clean body check and you take the wrong angle of approach or whatever, that's you're attempting to make a hockey play. It just goes a little bit wrong. Maybe that's a 1 to 2 gamer. Maybe it's a 3 gamer, 3 to 5 at the most, depending on the violence of the hit and the degree of avoidability. But if you're cross checking someone in the face, right now that's a fine in the real world NHL. To me, a cross check to the face there's no purpose at all to cross check someone in the face. There's no purpose for cross checking someone above the waist. So if you get to the face, you're clearly doing something that you don't need to be doing. So therefore, to me, that's an automatic minimum. Cross check to the face, minimum 6 game suspension. Currently in the NHL, that's maybe a fine, maybe nothing. They look at them and they reduce them down to 2 minutes, and they don't do anything after the fact. And to me, it's just so avoidable. It's so easy to eliminate. So that's one example of a 6 to 10 game suspension for me. Another one would be like a slew foot or something. So I'm not asking for just banned hitting and all that, like some people think. No, I just want players to be reasonable and play within the confines of the rule book that they have. And all we have to do is actually enforce that rule book. It already exists. Just enforce it. That's all I'm asking. So the first round, I'd issue 4 fines, 29 suspensions. Um, in round two, I'd have issued 7 fines and 18 suspensions. And between the two conference finals, I'd have issued 4 fines and 9 suspensions. But let's break it down a little further. The first round consisted of 47 total games between the 8 playoff series. I would have had 33 incidents in those 47 games. So it would have been about zero point 0.7 fines or suspensions a game, which, for context, Leon Draisaitl scored goal, won the Rocket Richard, and he scored at about a zero point 0.7 goals per game pace. So if you can think about how many times Leon Draisaitl scored a goal, that's how many times during the first round I would have had a suspension or fine. Uh, the second round saw a pretty big spike in supplemental discipline rate for me in 23 games played. Okay, over the 4 series, 23 games, I would have had 7 fines and 18 suspensions. So that I would have had 25 incidents worthy of supplemental discipline, or 1.09 fines or suspensions per game. I'm just going to get caught up in the comments here. I I agree. I agree with you, Ace 96. Let's put this up. Let's talk about this for a second. I totally agree with you. If a guy throws a check and the guy getting hit leads with his face, that's on him. 100%. It is. There should. I totally agree with the NHL's rule 48, the way they word it. I don't think there should be a blanket penalty for head contact. I don't think, because you can throw a clean check that results in head contact, and you shouldn't be punished for that. The onus is on the player to protect themselves. Now, if that player leads with his face and you drive your shoulder up and shrug or take a poor angle of approach, then you should still be suspended. Because even though the player led with his face, to me, that would make head contact um, not necessarily avoidable, but your mechanism for hitting the head is avoidable. If you stick your elbow up, just because the guy's bent over, it doesn't give you the right to elbow him in the head or drive your shoulder through his head when the core is available. So to me, I agree. There shouldn't be a blanket penalty for all head contact, but you also shouldn't get off scot free just because someone puts their head down. You still have the onus to hit that player in a way that would have been clean had their head not been in the way. So that's where I'm at. I love this. So Peros gives his like that 5 to 8 games. Does he give a lot of 5 to 8 game suspensions? I don't know. I'd have to see an example of that. I follow the NHL very closely in terms of especially the Department of Player Safety. Um, I can't think of a time where they gave a 5 to 8 game suspension for just a basic illegal check to the head. Um, but I agree with the sentiment. I think that the IIHF goes too far with it. I think they don't make any allowances for the fact that you can have clean checks that result in contact with the head. To me, that's not called an illegal check to the head because you've done nothing to target the head. The hitter should be rewarded for a good hit for sure, no matter how the other guy is. They should be rewarded for a good hit, But to me, a good hit would be one where you take a proper angle of approach, keep your elbow down, keep your shoulder down, don't leave your feet, don't explode or extend up with your hands. That's that's a good hit. Reeves on Nurse is a great example. Okay, Reeves on Nurse. See, 5 games for today's NHL, I'll give you that. 5 games is a little excessive for that one. That's a great example, and I appreciate you bringing that up. So Reeves on Nurse. I did cover this. I can't remember honestly off the top of my head what I would have suspended him, but I think I might have given something similar. And the reason is because it was a terrible angle of approach. Nurse had his head down. There's no doubt, but that head was to me 1,000% avoidable. If Reeves had stayed low and gone through, he would have been 100% fine. But he rose up and tried to make that hit harder than it had to be by exploding up and out into that. So that's we'd have to look at that video and watch it. But to me, that's the difference between it's a great example of what I'm talking about. Someone had their head down, they're vulnerable, so you can't fault them if you hit them in the head. But because he does things to not try and avoid the head, where he even if Nurse was standing up tall, he would have hit him in the head. To me, that makes it a bad hit. I don't know. Well, that's a great example. I mean, we can do this all night. I love this. This is fantastic. Um, I'm gonna try and continue with some of these numbers, and if you think of something else, then by all means, this is fantastic. Um, so I had point 0.7 fines and suspensions per game in the first round. I had 1.09 fines or suspensions per game in the second round. Things got a little more intense. In the third round was actually quite short. There was only 5 games in each series, so only 10 games total. But there definitely was still, to me, plenty of filth, I'd say. I would have given 9 suspensions in those 10 games. Um, and also 4 fines. So 1.3 instances of supplemental discipline per game. So the games to me got dirtier as the rounds progressed. And that was something I didn't realize until I tallied all this up, which is kind of interesting to me. Not puffball. Nice. Uh, yeah. So to me, each round got progressively dirtier, which I found interesting. I'm going to go more than half an hour. I can see this now because of these comments, which is great. I love this. Yeah, this is fantastic. Thank you. Um, so of note, I would have given at least one fine or suspension, just at least one, in every single series over the entire first 3 rounds, except for one single matchup. There's only one playoff series in 3 rounds that I would not have given any fines or suspensions to. I wonder if anybody could guess which one it is. I was surprised when I saw this. I was like, really? There was nothing in that? Um, First round, Vegas Golden Knights versus Minnesota Wild. I had that as fine and suspension free hockey. It shocked me because when I think of, you know, a 6 game series involving the Vegas Golden Knights, I would expect at least one suspension or fine there. But there was zero, zero. So, I'm, there was all this talk about Vegas playing penalty-free hockey, and it was such a people are saying the refs, I don't know if they look the other way, and you're trying to find something on Vegas. Do they really play penalty-free hockey? Apparently they do, even under my system. Crazy. I would not have guessed that going into the playoffs. If I had to pick one round that wouldn't have had any fines or suspensions, it wouldn't have been Vegas, Minnesota, especially where it went 6 games. Now, the flip side of that, so that was the cleanest round by far the dirtiest first round series. Anybody guess what that is for me? I don't know if there would actually be a surprise. Like, so Washington, Montreal, the first round series. Do you guys remember this series? I don't think if you think back to how that went, that you'd be surprised that I would have had the most supplemental discipline out of that series. I would have had 2 fines and 10 suspensions. So 12 instances of supplemental discipline in that one series alone. First round, Washington, Montreal. With 2 or 3 of those being cross checks to the face, if I remember correctly. So to me, yeah, like those are easy 6 games to me. Um, so of the four second round series, it probably wouldn't surprise anyone that the overwhelming majority of incidents in the second round under my system came from yeah, thank you. Have a great night, Ace 96. I appreciate it. Hopefully I'll see you again the next time I do this. Um yeah, of the four second round series, um, most of my incidents came from Leafs Panthers. 7 game. Now, I wouldn't exactly call it a thriller, I guess, because two of the final 3 games were some of the most boring hockey I've ever watched in my life, probably, uh, including Game 7. But either way, to me, that series, you know, there was a lot of dirt going on. I'm not surprised it was a series involving the Panthers that was the most dirty, and I'm not surprised that the team that played the Panthers matched the dirtiness, to be honest. Because, like Ace 96 said, dirtiness, the only way to fight against dirtiness is to be dirty yourself. Dirty wins. So, to compete against dirtiness, you have to become a little bit dirty. And those two teams definitely were. 2 fines and 10 suspensions in that series, which is the equivalent of what I would have given in Washington, Montreal, by the way. 12 incidents in each. In the third round, so the two conference finals, I had them split almost evenly. 6 suspensions coming from the West between Dallas and Edmonton, and 3 suspensions and 4 fines from Florida and Carolina out east. So 7 instances in Florida, Carolina, 6 between Dallas and Edmonton. Um, Now, breakdown number 2 by suspension category. Suspension category under my system means how many games I would have given. Uh, I had 15 total fines through 3 rounds, so there were 56 suspensions that I would have handed out between throughout rounds 1 to 3. So for me, there would have been 3 suspensions that were worth between 1 and 2 games. The overwhelming majority, 33 suspensions, would have been between 3 and 5 games. Um, I think that sounds reasonable. When you look at some of the ones that I had 6 to 10 games, okay, I had 20 suspensions that would be 6 to 10 games long, and you're like, this guy's crazy. He'd be suspending everybody for the whole playoffs, 6 games and up. It's insane. But really, most of my suspensions are 5 games or less, and mostly between 3 and 5 games, and usually leaning towards the 3 more so than the 5. So, really, 3 playoff games is not an unreasonable suspension, um, for, like, say, illegal checks to the head or elbowing or things like that. Of the 6 to 10 game suspensions, like I said, I don't want to just suspend everybody for every little thing and just throw the book at them. You have to do something significantly dangerous or significantly avoidable to earn a 6 to 10 game suspension under my system. So, like I said, 7 of those alone of the 20 6 to 10 game suspensions that I've given out were cross checks to the head. That's automatic to me. Seven cross check someone in the head, boom, 6 games at least. And depending on force and violence, it goes up from there. But that, to me, that's not unreasonable. One was a slew foot. Who would want to see slew foots out of the game? Minimum 6 game suspension. That's a dirty match penalty. So it's not like I'm just suspending someone 6 games for a little roughing after the whistle or something. Slew foot, cross checks to the head, abusive official. That happened a couple of times this playoffs. I mean, stuff that even in real world should be 6 to 10 games. And under my system, I'm agreeing they should just regularly be 6 to 10 games. I mean, how do you slash an official and not get anything for it? To me, that should be like the most basic suspension there is, but not in the NHL. So to me, that's crazy. Like it is asinine that someone could slash an official because they're upset he didn't make a call and then not get at least a fine. I don't get it. I hope that we agree on that. Like, surely I'm speaking reasonably here. Like, surely that makes sense to people. Uh, Now, the next breakdown would be by infraction. So I already did a little of that. Of 15 fines that I would have had between rounds 1 and 3, 15 fines, 13 of them, or almost all of those fines, would have been for some form of unsportsmanlike conduct as opposed to some sort of physical, act or hockey play or whatever. They were mostly for unsportsmanlike conduct. Two of them would be for players shooting the puck at one another. Like, it's just basic stuff. You shouldn't shoot a puck at another player uh, intentionally. That's got to be at least a fine, right? There would have been two separate instances, two fines to Matthew Kachuk for intimidation after the whistle or during the play, but away from the play, that sort of thing. Like, we shouldn't allow players. We were talking about how dirtiness wins. We shouldn't allow players to stalk other players and interfere with them behind the play and intimidate them that way. You should have to be able to be better hockey players than them, not just be bullies. To me, that's the way I see the game. So just because you're down 2-0 in the series, you're about to go down 2-0 in the series, there's 5 seconds left in the game, that shouldn't be a trigger to say, okay, now I'm just going to go after their top player and see what happens. Like, that's basic. I'm not even asking for a suspension, just a fine there. One of them was for Tom Wilson stealing Sebastian Aho's mouth guard. To me, that was one of the funniest things that happened in the entire playoffs. After the whistle, Tom Wilson stayed there talking to Sebastian Aho, and then boop, steals the mouth guard and then skates away. Um, and you see me laughing. Like, as a hockey fan, I think that stuff's hilarious. As a fan, I don't want to see that out of the game. It's I don't know. It just was so funny to me. But as a body in charge of hockey discipline, like, that has to be a fine. It's such unsportsmanlike conduct. It's so ridiculously avoidable and weird and greasy. Like, I just don't get it. But it was hilarious to watch. But it should be a fine for me. Cross check behind the play. I mean, and 7 of those would be for ripping off the helmet of an opponent during a scrum. Now, again, this is a real rule where if players rip intentionally the helmet off an opponent, particularly during the scrum, but also during play, uh, it should be an automatic fine. It's supposed to be an automatic penalty for roughing, which they almost never call. Except they did call a couple this playoffs. One, even in the Eastern Conference Final, they called someone for ripping the opponent's helmet off. So it's not like they don't know the rule exists. They just don't call it consistently. But for me, that should also come with a fine because if you're in the middle of a scrum and you're ripping someone's helmet off, you're intentionally doing things to make them vulnerable and to create danger for that player. So it is a player safety issue. As soon as you rip that person's helmet off, now everyone piles on and someone grabs them and slams them down. They're at an unfair advantage. And you created that intentionally and avoidably. So to me, that should come with an automatic fine as well to stop players from doing it. And if you do a repeat offender, the next time you do it as one player, it's not a fine, it's a suspension. Shouldn't be that hard. Um, the two non-unsportsmanlike related fines I would have given were for Jake Wallman of the Oilers almost cross-checked Philip Deneau in the face. If he'd have made contact, it would have been 6 games. But because he missed, it was just a fine, just a warning. And then another one, Tom Wilson left his feet and almost hit someone in the head. Give him a warning. If he'd have hit him, 3 games. Give him a warning as a fine. Stay on your feet when you hit. As far as physical, so for 56 suspensions, I'll start with the lowest and work my way to the highest. There was one attempted elbow, didn't make contact, but I can't remember the circumstances I put it. It was between um, Washington and Montreal. It was one of those ones in the first round. Um, anyway, there was an attempted elbow. I gave him a suspension for that, 1 to 2 games. One slew foot, one slashing suspension, which was Bouchard on Hints. That I think everyone would agree that probably deserved a suspension. There was one for kneeing, 4 for interference, but not just like picking. I mean, like, not just holding or whatever. I mean, actual interference where you're throwing a full on body check at a player who's not eligible to be checked and you're doing it in a dangerous fashion. 5 of these would be for needlessly endangering an official, which is a rule that I kind of created. For those of you that don't know, for me, if there's a scrum and you're in a fight or whatever, the officials come break it up, then it's over. And after that, if you needlessly start something again and force the officials to have to go back in and break it up and do their job all over again, to me, that should be an automatic 5 game suspension. If the official's between you and you reach over the official and still try and punch them, that to me should be a 5 game suspension. I call that needlessly endangering an official. Um, just so avoidable to you don't have to put these officials in that sort of position all the time. I get it. The initial fight, the initial scrum, get in there, do your thing. But once it's broken up and it's over, let it be over. If you reinstigate it, that's when you should be suspended. Uh, 5 of my suspensions would have been for unsportsmanlike conduct, just in general. And then 6 of them would have been for unsportsmanlike conduct, specifically for removing the helmet of an opponent. Um, we're talking multiple offenses. And then 6 of my suspensions would have been for charging, every single one of which would have been for leaving the feet, not just for building up speed or 3 strides or whatever people like to think charging is. Charging is also leaving your feet. You don't even have to take 3 strides. You can glide and then jump, and that's a charge. And to me, that is where most of my charging suspensions come from because leaving your feet isn't just dangerous, it's extremely avoidable if you body check properly. There's no reason for you to leave your feet. So to me, that should be a pretty basic suspension, and then it goes up in grade from there. So I would have had 6 of those. 7, again, like I said, were for cross checks to the face. How hard is that? Like, that is one of the most easy, free, low-hanging fruit suspensions the NHL should give, and they never give it. One 5 of them, 5 of those 7, actually, now that I think about it, weren't even called penalties, or at least major penalties. There was only 2 major penalties for cross-checking to the face. They were either not called at all or reduced down to a minor penalty, where to me, this should be easy, automatic majors and suspensions. 9 of my suspensions would have been for illegal checks to the head. And I'm not talking just basic, okay, minor penalties, whatever. Like Aaron Ekblad, for instance, his shot to Hagel. To me, that is an illegal check to the head. You could probably call it an elbow. It was more of a forearm, but it was all head. He completely avoided the body and rose up and drove his. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. To me, that is an easy suspension. And I would have had 9 similar incidents. And then 10, I don't think the NHL does enough for boarding or hitting from behind. So 10 of my suspensions, the most suspensions in any category would be for boarding, which usually means it's a hit from behind, specifically into the boards. I really don't think the NHL does nearly enough to crack down on that. So here we go with that's by incident. I don't know that on my YouTube channel when I put these out, you just look at my channel and you see, okay, 6 game suspension here, 8 game suspension there, and then you're like, this guy's nuts. But when you break it down and see where I'm coming from, it as a collective, as a plan, it really makes sense. Like I'm actually quite proud of how this is working out, and the logic behind it. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think players could get behind this consistency and understand what it's trying to accomplish, and they'd be able to adjust and easily play within the confines of a system like this, of a system of just basic consistency and basic request to keep yourself contained to playing hockey and doing hockey related things and keeping the non-hockey stuff out of the game. To me, that would increase body checking and just make the game a lot more entertaining and not slow it down any. So breakdown by team. Who was the dirtiest team of the 2025 playoffs? Well, I'm about to tell you. I'll do it by round, and then I'll do it by uh, total through the playoffs. So I'm just looking at my notes here. For round one, um, so I should start with non-dirtiest and go to dirtiest, I guess. So in round one specifically, alone, isolated, remember uh, Vegas and Minnesota in their series, they had 0 fines or suspensions. So those would be the 2 cleanest teams. Add to that New Jersey and Winnipeg. There were four teams in the first round that would have earned zero fines and zero suspensions and played what I would be considering tough playoff hockey without the dirt. Um, so Winnipeg, New Jersey, Vegas, Minnesota. Zero fines, zero suspensions. LA, I'd have given one suspension, played a pretty clean series. I thought that Edmonton LA series was uh, very interesting in how that went. Ultimately, it was fairly clean. It wasn't what I would have expected between those two teams. It was quite entertaining, quite good hockey, and like I said, relatively clean. Carolina, I'd have given one suspension. Colorado and Tampa Bay, also one suspension. So four teams, nothing, and four teams, one suspension only. Now we're going to get up there a little bit. So the Toronto Maple Leafs, I would have given two suspensions. So they're tied for fourth ranked. Dallas and Ottawa, I would have given them two suspensions. It is important to note that for Ottawa and Dallas, one of their two suspensions each would have been a six gamer. Ottawa's for cross checking to the face, and Dallas is I can't remember off the top of my head. The Ottawa one I know was a cross check to the face, that Grieg one on Tavares. The Dallas one I can't remember. So now we're into the top dirty teams. So tied for third place, Edmonton. I would have had two suspensions and one fine for three instances of supplemental discipline. Montreal, I would have given three suspensions in the first round, one six gamer. Florida, I would have given three suspensions. So tied for third is Edmonton, Montreal, and Florida. The second dirtiest team of the first round was the St. Louis Blues. Under my system, I'd have given four suspensions and one fine, and one of those suspensions would have been a six gamer. And the dirtiest team of the first round for me was the Washington Capitals. I would have given them six suspensions, two fines, including two six-game suspensions, both for cross-checking to the face. So the dirtiest team of the first round was Washington. The second dirtiest team was St. Louis. And then tied for third, Florida, Montreal, Edmonton, with three instances of supplemental discipline each. So that's round one. Round two. Where did I write the round two at? Let's see. Round two. In the second round, I would have given Carolina zero fines and zero suspensions. At seventh place, Edmonton with one suspension. They were the second cleanest team of the second round. Winnipeg, one suspension, but they bump up to six over Edmonton because one of them would have been a six gamer. Vegas, one suspension and one fine, but one was a six gamer. Fourth place, the fourth dirtiest team of the second round was Dallas. I would have given them two suspensions and one fine, including a six gamer. The third dirtiest team was Washington, two suspensions and one fine. The second dirtiest team of the second round was the Toronto Maple Leafs with four suspensions. Now, if you remember, Toronto was one of the least suspended teams in the first round, only two suspensions. And here they are in the second round, the second dirtiest team with four suspensions. And it's because their opponent, the Florida Panthers, was the dirtiest team of the second round by far, with eight instances of supplemental discipline, six suspensions, and two fines. So Florida, being tied for third in the first round, now jumps to an easy first place in terms of dirt level in the second round. Third round, let's see. So the third round, the two conference finals, so there's only four teams. The cleanest team to me was the Edmonton Oilers, one suspension, but that one suspension was the six-game suspension. It was that Evan Bouchard slash to Rupe Hintz. So even though there's only one suspension, it was a fairly significant incident. Lots of chatter about it. But overall, cleanest team of the third round, Edmonton. Carolina beats Edmonton because I would have given them two fines. But it is important to know that there's no suspensions there. Just they would have had two instances of supplemental discipline. The second dirtiest team of the third round was the Florida Panthers, three suspensions and two fines. So five instances of supplemental discipline, including a six gamer. And the dirtiest team of round three under my system was the Dallas Stars, five suspensions, including a six gamer, which at this moment, I can't remember what it was for. Um, but still, the dirtiest team of the third round was the Dallas Stars, the second dirtiest team, the Florida Panthers. So going through the three rounds and toting, 100% agree. Um, sorry, I was just reading something on the screen. So the total for each team through the first three rounds, I'm going to go from cleanest to dirtiest. So, who was the dirtiest team of the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs through three rounds? Here we go. Now, in 16th place, the cleanest team then, the Minnesota Wild, and tied with them, New Jersey, both zero fines, zero suspensions, and both eliminated in the first round. Think of that what you will. The cleanest teams, boom, gone. Uh, in 14th place, the Tampa Bay Lightning, one suspension. Uh, and tied with them, Winnipeg Jets, one suspension, and LA Kings, one suspension. Also, interestingly, Tampa Bay ended first round, LA ended first round. So four of the five cleanest teams in the Stanley Cup playoffs did not make it out of the first round. Again, read into that what you will. Um, the Winnipeg Jets were in there as well. They made the second round. Just remember that. Colorado also one suspension, also a first round exit. So I should have actually scratched that. By I should have waited to say what I said. One, two, three, four, five, six. So five of the cleanest six teams didn't make it out of the first round. In 10th place, the Vegas Golden Knights, one suspension and one fine through the whole playoffs. So again, one of the most clean teams didn't make it out of the second round. And Ottawa, just above them, with two suspensions, also didn't make it out of the first round. So we're looking at the bottom half of the league being the cleanest and not making it very far in the playoffs. So that's to Ace 96's point that he said earlier. Dirt wins. Being dirty wins the NHL playoffs. And, all the evidence suggests that's true. There is one outlier that I'll get to up here in a minute. At eighth place, the eighth dirtiest team, so about middle of the pack, the Carolina Hurricanes. I would have given them one suspension and two fines over three rounds of hockey. So that's fairly clean hockey. Seventh place, Montreal, three suspensions. In sixth place, Edmonton, four suspensions and one fine for five instances of supplemental discipline through three rounds, remember, not including the final. I haven't done the final. Fifth place, the St. Louis Blues, four suspensions and one fine. Fourth place, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the fourth dirtiest team of the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs. Toronto Maple Leafs, six suspensions total. The third dirtiest team of the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs, the Dallas Stars, nine suspensions and zero fines for nine instances of supplemental discipline. Here's that outlier I was talking about. The second dirtiest team of the entire first three rounds of the Stanley Cup playoffs, to me, was the Washington Capitals. 8 suspensions and 3 fines. That's a significant number of suspensions and fines to me for not going on a very deep run. So that was the outlier. That leads me to number one, the dirtiest team of the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs through the first three rounds, the Florida Panthers. 12 suspensions and 4 fines under my system for 16 total instances of supplemental discipline that would have been issued under my system. That's 5 more than second place. and you're getting into 10 more than the fourth place in the rest of the league. It's a significant amount. Now, to be fair to them, in a way, I'll be a little bit fair to them. Some of those would have been ones that would never have happened under my system because multiple players on the Florida Panthers committed multiple offenses under my system. So they would have already been serving suspensions and not done the second or even third things in some cases that they would have done. They wouldn't have been in the games to do that. So under my system, Florida would not be able to accumulate 16 suspensions and fines. It just wouldn't happen because those players wouldn't be in the game, and they'd quickly learn that they would lose a lot of their roster. Not just them, but anyone under my system would quickly learn that they can't play that way for very long and have much success. But I mean, the numbers don't lie. I don't plan to fine or suspend one team more than the other when I watch them. I just watch them and I jot down what they do and don't do, and I judge them accordingly. And the numbers are what they are. I don't know how you feel about my results, or if you agree with that. If you would have guessed possibly that Florida was the dirtiest team of the first three rounds, I think a lot of people may have guessed it. I don't think it would have been much of a surprise to people, but some of them are surprises to me. So I found that to be pretty interesting data. So that's my recap of the 2025 Stanley Cup playoffs, first three rounds. Coming up at another date yet to be named, I will do my recap of the Stanley Cup final, tell you how many fines and suspensions I would have issued between Florida and Edmonton in their six-game series to end the playoffs. And I will add that to their totals and show how that would change their rankings league wide, um, compared to all the teams that competed in the playoffs this year. So I will post. I will post that at another time. I will let you know when I will do that live stream, and hopefully, a lot of you will be back. There's a lot of viewers tonight. I really appreciate the people sticking through this and listening and watching. If you have any comments here over the next couple minutes, I have about 5 minutes that I can kill and sit here and just talk hockey if you like. And if not, I really appreciate you watching the stream and supporting the channel. Make sure that if you're watching on the Heavy Hockey Network channel, that you go to the Tough Call YouTube channel, my own personal YouTube channel, where you can watch my breakdowns and videos of all the incidents that I talked about here in this live stream, and see where I'm coming from in terms of how I got the suspensions that I did. When you think back to some of the more famous incidents of this playoffs, you can probably find a video of it on my YouTube channel and my breakdown of what I would have done about it. So make sure that you go to the Tough Call YouTube channel, subscribe, and then poke around and watch some of my videos if you haven't already, and see if you agree with how I got to these numbers that I presented to you here tonight. Um, yeah, I've had a lot of fun. I love when people get in the comments and just talk about this stuff. I could talk about body contact in hockey all day. I could talk about players turning their backs all day. These are conversations that I have all the time with people. The onus being on the hitter or the onus being on the player to protect themselves. I had that conversation just tonight in the comments. It's been great. Um, yeah, I guess I'll end it there, and hopefully I will see you next time. So have a good night. Thanks for watching and enjoy the hockey.